$500 billion. That's the total amount of student loan debt that was held by Americans back in 2006. And according to the Federal Reserve, in 2019, that number has shot all the way up to $1.6 trillion. This is an average of over $5,000 per person in the United States of student loan debt. There's no denying that this is a crisis, and it's one that our generation is going to have to solve. A commonly proposed solution to this problem is to have the government step in and make all public university tuition free of charge. But I'm here to argue that we should not do that, and instead we should be holding colleges accountable for the money they spend and the tuition they charge. Going to college is a financial risk, and it's one that students have a lot of control over when it comes to the magnitude of the amount of money that's spent on tuition. Also, colleges in the United States today spend a lot of money, and it's too much to just start forking over tax dollars so that they can do with it what they want. So I realize this is probably the unpopular opinion in the room, given our current situations, but I've held this opinion for a long time, and I've had a lot of discussions or arguments with my friends and family long before I had to give a persuasive speech on it. So first of all, the dirty little secret about free college tuition, as Teresa kind of alluded to in her speech, is that it's not actually free. The financial burden is simply being taken from being directly on the student to being put on the taxpayers as a whole, even though not all taxpayers are college students. And I think that it makes more sense to keep the financial risks and benefits just with the student instead of on the taxpayers as a whole, because the students have a lot of control over the magnitude of the money spent when they go to college. So for example, if a student decides to spend more money to go to a college campus that they like more, just because they like the college campus more, why should the taxpayer have to eat the cost of that? So if you could go to one school for cheaper and another school that's more expensive but arguably get the same quality of education, why should the taxpayer have to fund you going to the nicer campus? And also, once the student is at school, they have to succeed in order to make the money spent worth it. So if the student ends up dropping out, a lot of money gets wasted on tuition dollars that didn't amount to anything. So I think that it doesn't make sense to put that burden on the taxpayer, who doesn't have any control over whether or not the student succeeds or fails. So a lot of people bring up countries like Norway and other countries in Scandinavia where they have free college, so why can't the United States? And my answer to that is that colleges in the United States are different in that they spend a lot more money. So a study done by Sam Dillon in 2010 in the New York Times article titled "The Share of College Spending for Recreation is Rising" showed that on average, per student in the United States, colleges spend an average of $19,000 per student versus only $8,400 in other developed countries. And part of the reason for this, according to a study in the Delta Cost Project by Donna Destruches in 2014, an article titled "Trends in College Spending," that this has a lot to do with colleges' increased spending on what they call, quote, non-instructional student services, end quote. So things like rec centers and recreational activities or big renovation projects, colleges are spending more and more on those things. And as this happens, colleges are increasing the amount that they charge for tuition. So Aaron Duffin in 2020 published data from the Institute for College Access and Success that showed that since 2002, college tuition prices in the United States have increased by 50%, and that is adjusted for inflation. So as colleges begin to spend more money on projects that don't necessarily improve the quality of education, they are demanding more money for tuition. And so some examples of this type of spending on Cal Poly's campus, I'm sure many of you walk by every day the brand new Vista Grand dining complex that's being constructed, or perhaps some of you noticed all the new palm trees that were shipped in on trucks and then hoisted into the ground with cranes next to the new volleyball courts. Those types of things aren't exactly necessary to the function of the school, but they still cost a lot of money. And in 2020, on the Cal Poly Facilities Management and Finance page, there's a running list of projects that they plan to do in the future. And a lot of them are basically improvements to the campus that don't necessarily improve the quality of education. So things like, once they're done with the brand new dining complex, they're going to renovate the old one, like 805 and the Avenue. Those are totally getting redesigned. And they're also planning to renovate the Kennedy Library. So these are just some of the things that are happening in our school, and this is not unique to Cal Poly. It's happening all over campuses across the United States. So this is definitely an issue that we're going to have to tackle in the future, and to me, it doesn't seem fair to take a bunch of tax dollars and just start handing them over to universities so that they can spend on things like campus improvements that don't really provide any more value for people's degrees. So just because you went to a school that had nicer amenities, that doesn't mean that your degree is worth any more and you won't be able to provide more value in the economy later. So I would encourage you next time this topic comes up for discussion in your life to maybe redirect it from we need the government to start paying for college tuition to why are colleges spending so much money, and do they really need to be spending this much money? Could they be putting that money towards reducing tuition? And right now there's not much we can do to control how much we're charged for tuition, but after searching around I found that you can contact the Administration of Finance, Cynthia Villa, that's the Vice President of Administration and Finance. There is a convenient place where you can leave feedback, and I would encourage you to let them know that as a student you would rather see reduction in tuition costs than more development projects, and you'd rather see more students be able to come here for less money than more recreational activities and stuff that doesn't improve the quality of your education.